Guys, we are joined today by Katie Hayes, who is the Director of Product Management at Gerber. She oversees all the plumbing fittings. So we're talking about industrial design, we're talking about how these fixtures are designed and made. And if you're anything like me, I find this stuff fascinating. It's this whole world, not even just the plumbing fittings, but this industrial design and this kind of career path. You know, I don't cross paths with it ever. So this was a really fun insight into this world. Katie was great. I really appreciate her joining us. With no further ado, let's learn more about plumbing fixtures.
I can honestly say I never thought like designing, faucets would be part of my career path. I've been in product development for this will be 20 years. So my degree's in industrial design. And I kind of found industrial design after starting off in architecture. Wow. So always in that kind of like creation space, I guess. But after I earned my degree, then I started off in furniture. I ended up in housewares for a bit. Injection molding plastics and things. And prior to joining Gerber, I was at Sears Holdings, responsible for their private brand product development in home fashions. Oh, wow. And yeah, I got a phone call one day, like, what do you know about plumbing? And I was like, nothing, but that sounds like interesting. Then I joined Gerber. It's been great. I didn't really have any exposure to this product category before. And most of my career was primarily retail to consumer. Mm-hmm. So that's been a lot of learning and really interesting because Gerber brand is really well known in the pro space. Plumbing wholesale is really our primary distribution channel. So we sell direct to wholesalers who are selling to like plumbers, designers, other pros for the most part. So learning that path to purchase and really understanding the product features that are important to those decision makers, right? A plumber cares more about speed and ease of install and reliability than a homeowner really does. So it's kind of finding that balance of design performance that meets the homeowner's needs while being able to deliver on reliability and ease of install. That's important for the pros.
Plumbing fixtures, I think, in the home are, among the most important thing for design because furniture can be swapped. Electrical fixtures, you don't kind of touch them as often. I mean, you can, but you don't as often. Plumbing, you're just all over it, hands, and you want it for generally, I would guess a faucet might expect, I know it could last a long time, but maybe after 20 years, someone's ready to look at something different. So it's like one of the things you want to get it right the first time.
Yeah. And Gerber, it's we have a couple kind of brand pillars that we try to design into our product DNA really. And one of those is, being trend relevant, but not trendy. Because it is really important. It's not a fashion purchase for most people. Like they want it to look good and be able to withstand the test of time, both from like a performance and also from a aesthetic perspective. Mm-hmm. You don't want to like spend all this investment redoing your bathroom and then in 2 years, like, oh God, I hate that, finish or that design detail or something. So
yeah, really trend important. Relevant, but not trendy.
Yep.
About trends in general, I'm kind of fascinated by them because I'm old enough now to have seen things come and go and then come again, and I'm kind of like starting to feel like, wait a minute, this is a little circular here, or at least it repeats itself. So, could you describe like what types of trends, or like how do trends affect plumbing fixtures in terms of their design? Is it like more like smooth and graceful versus sharp lines, or what are the categories of plumbing design that come and go in terms of trend?
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's definitely kind of circular, but sometimes, when it comes around, it evolves and takes kind of a little bit of a different form, I guess. We look at we go to shows, we look at brands who are more leading from a design perspective, higher end brands. We also look at adjacent categories a lot because you'll see a lot of that design detail translate from, drawer pulls and lighting.
Yeah.
Um, but even things that's a little bit more decor focused in housewares and like home decor.
Mm-hmm.
So we keep an eye on all of those markets. But yeah, I totally agree. It is very cyclical. Like when we first started developing our brush bronze finish,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh really? We just got rid of like the polished brass, just a few years ago. Like, all right,
Right.
is this coming back? Um, and so that resurgence of like the warm tones, but they've been reinterpreted where like the brushed finishes and the matte golds are where we're seeing those warmer tones more so than like the polished brass that I grew up with.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's such a there's such a I don't know. It's almost like you can't put your finger on it, but like the kitchen faucet we have is brushed brass or I can't remember what the technical term is, but I don't know, something about like the little details on it, it doesn't look anything like the previous
Mm-hmm.
gold things that came out, even if they were brushed. It's just a combo of I don't know, I guess it's just
Yeah,
where
of
design
like
is.
how the form evolves to be a little bit more updated, even if it's on a more kind of traditional, like warmer finish like that.
Exactly. So, what about, we're in Oregon on the West Coast, which I think a lot of the West Coast might be on the same page, at least in terms of the way homes are built. Are your products, are different styles more popular in different parts of the country? Are there separate from, styles over time? Are there preferences and styles and location as well? And what's that like?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the coasts are generally more kind of contemporary in styling. Florida kind of falls within that when we're where we see Gulf Coast and Midwest and a little bit of the Northeast. That's more kind of traditional.
Hmm.
And we can see that in finish trends. And sometimes the finish kind of relates to that aesthetic, right? So we'll see more contemporary clean line faucets in chrome
Uh,
a lot, but then we'll also see chrome in like the very kind of um, more utilitarian product.
yeah.
Um, and some of our faucets, like I think in the kitchen, you guys have the
Yes,
Kinsey pull
exactly.
down fridge.
Yeah.
Um, I love that faucet. That's the first model that we brought to market that has the pull down feature on a bridge.
Oh,
So that really speaks to like what we talked about, this cycle of trends. People like this industrial influence. It has the levers that look almost like a ball valve.
yes. Yeah,
Lever.
yeah, they got like sharp right angles and they feel a little bit industrial.
Uh,
And yet when it goes up the stem, it still or whatever, it still has nice trim and like very soft features.
yeah, and that's one where we Kinsey does pretty well across the country, but in the markets that are a little bit more traditional, the matte black finish does really well because it feels a little bit more kind of farmhouse.
Yes.
Whereas when you see that style in brush bronze, in like in your home or in chrome, it gives a different vibe, even though the form is the same.
Yeah.
The design and the finish kind of lend themselves to different aesthetics a little bit.
In some areas of design, there's like a tension between how well something works versus how good it looks. Does that exist with plumbing? Because obviously the gaskets and the seals are non-negotiable. Is that difficult to come with to good design? Are your engineers always like having to push back in terms of like that won't work, or has that been solved and it's kind of not really that challenging for you guys?
We own our own manufacturing, so we're not all brands are that vertically integrated. So we have a very close partnership. Myself and our product team with our engineers and our factory teams. So we work very collaboratively in that new product development process. But first and foremost, like Gerber, our product DNA and our goal is really like it always needs to perform. We'll never sacrifice performance to achieve an aesthetic goal. But yeah, quite often there's this balance of manufacturing efficiency and engineering performance and design, and there is a lot of negotiating to really make sure that to find that balance. But we for Gerber, it's really important that we're never sacrificing performance for aesthetics.
Yeah, I would think so. I know all products feel that way, but again, with plumbing, there's kind of a lot on the line, not just customer satisfaction, but I'm sure liability and callback, all kinds of things where it's just not worth even getting remotely close to anything too cutting edge in terms of like what works, right?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. We have a couple standard ceramic disc cartridges that we use in our faucets, a couple standard sizes. So we like to stick with those because it also helps with service. So we've got a common part across models, but we had a design that required a really specific cartridge from both a size and a handle operation. And we ended up choosing not to go forward with that concept because it meant, making our service a little bit more complex, our supply chain a little bit more complex. It had some engineering challenges that we felt that trade-off wasn't worth it.
I want to talk about manufacturing a little bit. You guys have said you're more vertically integrated than most. So are there parts of the world that really specialize in certain aspects of manufacturing? And I guess how has it gotten to be that way? It makes sense because it's normal for people and regions to specialize and get better at things. But how does that exist with manufacturing for you guys?
Manufacturing, there's definitely different manufacturing strengths, like pockets of that skill set kind of throughout the world where there are specializations. I'll give you an example from our vitreous china product offering. So that's like toilets and sinks. We manufacture some of those in mainland China. We also have manufacturing in Saltillo, Mexico. So there's kind of an interesting link with Saltillo. It's known for their tiles, like ceramic tiles. But oftentimes people don't really think about a toilet in this way, but it's really like a little bit more kind of art than science. The raw materials that go into the slip, like the clay, essentially, really controlling the environment for the for the glaze and also for the time that it's in the kiln. Like that's really critical. To make sure that it dries the right amount, but not too much, like for shrinkage, and that it results in a durable product, but still a really smooth finish for that performance on clean bowl and smooth flush. So on our faucet side of the business, I think a great example is on some of our component sourcing. We source some of our components from a company called Neopearl. And they are a Swiss company, so they have some very performance-based, like precision parts, and they're very skilled at that. There's a lot of perception that like German engineering, right, from automotive and and that also translates to faucets, like these very precision performance components of a faucet, like the aerator and the supply hoses that need to perform every day seamlessly for the life of the product.
Oh, wow. So the guts of it, some of the aerator, is that the thing that kind of mixes the air and the water and smooths it out? Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. That little part comes from a specialist in Switzerland.
Yes, like a very precise injection molding of multiple components in there. And so it's such a small part that those tolerances are really critical to make sure that your water stream is smooth. Aerators today are also flow restrictors in many cases. So Gerber faucets are WaterSense certified. in the bathroom, that's 1.2 gallons per minute. So you get a little bit of conservation, but you still get great performance.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of engineering that goes into making sure that aerator can deliver 1.2 gallons per minute, whether you have low pressure or high pressure, poor quality water, or like super clean water, chlorinated, hard water.
Huh.
Yeah.
Um, how do you decide? Let's say this is a little bit back to design, but how does Gerber decide when to develop a new product based, just on the design? Is it kind of because people are requesting a certain type of thing, or how do you know when like a new design would work versus, your product line now looks amazing, but I'm guessing there's things in the works. And how do you make that call of like when it's time to try something different?
Yeah. We attend shows. So there's kitchen and bath shows globally. There's a really big show in Germany every few years that we go to, and KBIS in US.
Oh,
So we'll go to see what's happening in kitchen and bath market overall. Um, and we also really closely monitor our own product line, right? If, a traditional styles been in the line for a while and maybe those sales are declining, but we still see relevance of some design trend there or like some design elements that are emerging. So it's really kind of that balance of looking at trends, and sometimes like making a best guess, right? You pull as much data as you can.
yeah.
Um, but that our position of being kind of trend relevant but not trendy, um, we like to see some of those design trends kind of evolving and building strength in the market before we'll take action against it. But um, our NPD timeline can be sometimes like up to 18 months, especially
Yeah.
if that's like a new feature or a new function that requires a lot of engineering validation and development.
Is there a faucet or a product that you have on the tip of your tongue that is like one of your greatest hits that you think that has just performed so well and always, is really loved and something that you feel like really embodies Gerber design and Gerber plumbing fixtures?
Hmm. Ah, in the vitreous product line, we've got two product lines that we've actually just refreshed last year. So that's probably a good example of like when does something need a little facelift. We've
Hmm.
got our Viper and Avalanche toilets that are really kind of performance based, but they had been in the line for I think like around a decade, give or take between the two of those. And it still, has the form of a toilet, but as manufacturing and design trends have changed, even just like the slope of the tank, it's a little bit
Mm.
concave instead of being a little bit convex.
Mm.
And we're able to produce a little bit more crisp, style lines in the ceramics than we used to be able to. So um,
Yeah.
that's a great example of kind of a product that's been in the line and performing very strong and has a lot of loyalty. But it is just ready for a little bit of a facelift to make sure that we kept that design relevant.
Interestingly, the plumber who did the install here, we brought all the products out, and he doesn't install Gerber fixtures very often. And I was asking about it. I was like, "How often do you do Gerber?" He's like, "Not all that often, except toilets." He's like, "I love." And I hope I'm not putting words in his mouth, but he said like I love or I'm all about Gerber toilets, and we install them all the time. He was really familiar, and you spoke earlier how you're maybe a little more oriented towards the wholesale and the professionals as opposed to the consumer, and that was certainly the feeling I got from him. He was like, it sounded like when it's up to him, he's installing a Gerber toilet, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, our Gerber is definitely better known for our toilets than the faucets, but we've been investing in the last couple of years, really elevating our faucet line to make sure that it delivers that same value,
Hmm.
with maybe a little bit more focus on style than people have perceived Gerber in the past.
Gerber is been around for a while as company, like 80 or 90 years. Is that right?
Yeah, 91, 91 years.
Amazing. Well, I'm gonna
Definitely,
have a.
there's a lot of heritage with the Gerber brand. It was actually a Chicago based family that that founded Gerber. There's I don't know if you've ever been spent any time in Chicago, but the Museum of Science and Industry is like on my must do list.
Oh,
Um, and there's an exhibit of Chicago based companies. And there is a little feature on Gerber, and there is a miniature toilet.
oh, really? Porcelain and everything?
They're like, let's look at the Gerber toilet.
That's
Um, yeah,
great.
90 years. There's some very interesting styles and like marketing assets in our archives. That's kind of fun to poke around in every so often and see the kind of the evolution of the Gerber brand and product line and even logos over that 90-year history.
I love that stuff. And speaking of marketing, just the marketing that I've seen from Gerber, I really like it. You know, the at least the campaign a few years ago, whenever that was like, it's not the baby food, it's not the knives. I can't remember, but
Yeah,
I just loved it. It was just honest and simple and like felt down to earth and no, not. I just really, I really enjoyed it. I'll have to look at the logo evolution because I personally like that kind of stuff as
yeah.
well.
There's a couple goofy logos in there for sure, but I think as an organization, that's what I really appreciate about being on the Gerber team is just like the authenticity, right?
Yes, that's the
Like
word. Yeah.
not a lot of like pretense of like this is who we are, and everybody's dedicated to delivering reliable products at a great value,
Yeah.
with beautiful styling, and just delivering on that reliability of like kind of set it and forget it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time. People don't realize it, but it's the end of the week. It's snowy outside, and this is probably the last thing on your calendar before the weekend. So I really appreciate it. And again, for those of you who are listening only, watch the video because you're going to see our plumber installing all these products that we're talking about here. You'll see them up close, and you'll understand what we mean about the beauty of these things because they really are just so beautiful. And that kitchen faucet is the one that I can't. It's in my middle of my house, so I think about it every time. It's just this perfect crossroads of form, function, beauty. It's it's modern, but it still feels traditional. It's really beautiful. And so thank you so much. Great
Yeah,
work.
thank you, Nate. It was really great chatting with you, and I hope you have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks, Katie.